beyeshiva.net.
So, Bruchim Abayim B'Shem Hashem, and I want to thank my dear friend, Rav Moti Eichler, for this privilege and this invitation, the chairman of Achim Global. Thank you so much for the schus and the privilege to be able to address this very special group of people, and everybody for coming out here, those of you who are here physically in the center of Achim, or those of you who are here with us virtually, or those of you who will watch the replay. Welcome to everybody. I know that today's class, or this evening's class and lecture, Shir, is dedicated in the loving memory of really an incredible human being who was responsible, together with many others, but one of the cornerstones, the foundations of Achim Global, dedicated in the loving memory and Leilu Nishmas, Reb Chaim, Reb Binyamin, Reb Chaim Shimel, who passed away Chavdalad, Adar Beis, just a little while ago, and was interred in Har HaZeisim in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, a person who has become a symbol and an ambassador of love and respect, an extraordinary father, an extraordinary grandfather, an extraordinary great-grandfather, an extraordinary husband, and an extraordinary child, somebody who dedicated his life to Tzarchi Tzibur, to the community of the Jewish people, and Rosh V'Rishon, to Achim, somebody who dedicated so much of his time and energy and resources to be able to help those who want to support themselves and their family with dignity, those who need work, those who need parnasa, those who are freelancers, who are startups, who want to engage in startups, or need help and assistance on every level, financial help, strategic help, emotional help. So this class is dedicated in his extraordinary memory, because the work that Achim continues to do on a daily basis to help thousands and thousands of young men and women of all ages to be able to support themselves and their families is directly connected to his complete dedication, and dedicated in honor of his wife, of his dear wife, Anna, and their children, Yankee and Moshe, who is today the president of Achim, and the daughter, Haley, and all of the children, all the grandchildren, and all the great-grandchildren. La'arichis yamim v'shanim tovos. And thank you very much, and thank you for everybody who's here. So, as Rabbi Eichler told me that this shir was dedicated especially in the week of Parshas Bahar, at least Parshas Bahar in Eretz Yisrael. We are still reading Parshas Emer. The Americans are a little behind the Israelis this time. Sometimes it's the other way around. Until I think Matas Maseh, when we're going to have Shalom Bayis, we'll have reconciliation. Because Parshas Bahar is really the Parsha that is the foundation of the entire work of Achim Global. Parshas Bahar is the Parsha that deals with one of the greatest challenges of history. It's been like this 3,300 years ago, and we still have the issue, and that's the issue of inequality in the market, poverty. And as Winston Churchill once said, we're talking about the British, so Winston Churchill once said, he said, capitalism is the unequal distribution of success. Socialism is the equal distribution of misery. The free market is something we cherish. And the free market, the idea that people can generate income and generate success and generate revenue, is something that the Torah not only advocates and allows, but the Torah really supports it, and supports it in a very profound way. All the halachas that deal with bailus ownership are a testament to this. And yet, free market is a very precious thing, but so is equality. But the two ideals can't work together, because free market is very good in generating revenue, but it's not so good in how do you distribute it in a way that there is equality. And the uniqueness of Torah and halacha is that it doesn't have just a simple solution to this problem. It's a very complex issue. It's an extremely complex issue. And Parshas Bahar is really the foundation in Torah Shebiksav for the hashkafa of Yiddishkeit, of Yadus, on the whole issue of how we deal with money and how we deal with the distribution of money, as we will explore some of these points in the Shir. Now, one of the key psukim in Parshas Bahar, Perek Chaf Hei, Pasuk Lamed Hei, is V'chiyamu chachicha, Umata yadoi imach, V'chazakta boi ger v'soyshav v'chai imach. Meaning, when your brother becomes poor, he experiences poverty. So mata yadoi imach, his hand wants to get support with you. So you should hold on to him. Hechzakta boi, you should hold on to him. You should support him. You should be mechazek him, but here it means hold on to him. Even the ger and the soyshav, the foreigner who came to live here, so that he should be able to live with you. So Rashi says, what does it mean, but you should hold on to him? Al tanecheyu sheyered v'yipol. Don't allow him to fall down. Hold on before he falls. V'yekasher lahakimai. Why? Because then it's going to be difficult to raise him back up. Elechaskeyu mishas meitas hayad. When his hand is losing a grip, hold on to him. You know, his hand is losing grip and he's falling, hold on to him. Lamaza Daim, and Rashi decides to give us a metaphor. The metaphor comes from Teres Koyanim, an illustration. Rashi doesn't always do this. He does this in unique situations when he feels that the illustration, the parable, is going to help us understand. Lamaza Daim, Lamasu ala chamor. There's a donkey who's carrying a burden. Ideyo ala chamor. As long as the burden is on the donkey, ata toifes boy, echa toifes boy, umamidoy. One person can grab it and keep it on the donkey. Once it falls down, it's so heavy, even 5 people can't lift it up. As long as it's still on the donkey, it didn't fall, then one person could come and chop it, and it doesn't fall. Once it fell, what's Rashi trying to say? Somebody is poor, somebody doesn't have money, so hold on to him. Rashi is telling us here the chiddush of this pasuk. The chiddush of this pasuk is not to give tzedakah to the poor. There's a lot of psukim to give tzedakah to the poor. Famous psukim in Parshas Re'eh. The pasuk here is talking about somebody who wants to support themselves. The donkey is still functioning. The donkey is carrying a burden. But the burden is about to fall off. So Rashi says, if you wait, if you delay it, once the burden falls, it's going to be very, very hard to bring it back up. Once the person cannot find the means to support themselves anymore, then it becomes extremely difficult. It's much more money and much more energy to be able to help them out, to be able to bring them back to where they were, or just to be able to give charity to them, because then you just have to support them. Rashi says what the Torah is saying, "V'chzakta boy." Allow a person the dignity to be able to continue carrying their burden, to be able to support themselves based on Hashem Yisbarach. And fascinatingly, the Rambam, the Nesher Hagadol, the great eagle, in Hilchis Matnas Aniyim, Perik Yud, Halacha Zayin, turned this into the classic halacha about the 8 levels of tzedakah. The Rambam says in his inimitable, beautiful language, Shmoyne Mailas Yesh B'Tzedakah Zu L'Mayla Mizu. There are 8 levels, 8 gradations in tzedakah, one beyond the other. And the Rambam uses these words, oh so rare for the Rambam. Maila G'doyle She'ein L'Mayla Mimena. The Rambam could have just said the first one, and I know that it's the greatest because he says there's 8 levels. So the Rambam could say, Maila Rishayna, I know it's the greatest because he's going to do 7 levels afterwards. Why does the Rambam have to add, Maila G'doyle She'ein L'Mayla Mimena? But that's what, these are his words. The great level of tzedakah, there's nothing higher than that. Ein l'mayla mimena. Really, there's nothing higher? Nothing higher. Ze hamachzik biyad Yisrael shemach, v'noisen loy matone oy halva, oy si moy shutfus, oy mamtzi loy meloche, k'dei lechazik es yodei ad shelo yitztarech lebriyas lisha. I don't think you have a better mission statement for Achim Global. Translate, somebody who holds on to the hand of a Jew who is experiencing poverty, and you give him a gift or a loan, he could pay you back, or you take him in, you invest with him, you create a partnership with him, you give him a down payment, you give him some seed money, or You provide him with a job. You provide him with a malacha, with a trade, with an opportunity, with a training, with a company, with an employer, in order to strengthen him so he doesn't need to become a burden on the community. He doesn't have to start walking around to people and saying, please, I don't have money, I don't have food, I don't have the ability to support myself and the family, and he has to start borrowing. The chiddush of והחזקת is not you're giving money to a poor person as charity. That's a gewaldige mitzvah. Hilchos tzedakah, you give money somebody who doesn't have, and you give them to support themselves and their family. They shouldn't go hungry. The kids should have shoes. They should have challah for Shabbos. Here, the chiddush is something else. והחזקת, you hold on to him. והחזקת, they shouldn't fall. He shouldn't need to fall on the ground and then everybody has to come and pick him up because he's wounded, he doesn't have anything. No, you hold on that he could remain on top of his game. He could remain on top of his life story. He could continue taking care of himself. Why? Because you held on to him. He needed some seed money. He needed some advice. He needed somebody to help him out of bankruptcy. He needed somebody to provide him training. He needed somebody to give him opportunities, to give him offers, to show him the ropes, to network, to give him a connection, to help him with his startup. Or if he's a freelancer, to give him opportunities, to find for him a place where he or she could thrive, to invest. These are the words of the Rambam, written 900 years ago. The Rambam says, Ein למאי ממנו. There's nothing above this. Again, he could have just said, this is great, this is the first level. He says there's nothing above this, because everything else is on a different level. And I'll explain to you how I understand why the Rambam adds these words. The Rambam continues, there's another 7 levels of tzedakah. What are the other 7 levels? Very briefly, the next level, this is 8. What's level 7? The lower level is, if I give tzedakah to a poor person, and he doesn't know who he got it from, and I don't know who I gave it to. Classic matan b'seis lishkas chashayim. I give it, he gets it, he doesn't know who he got it from, I don't know who I give it to. That's level 7. What's level 6? I know who I'm giving it to, but the poor person doesn't know who he's getting it from. It's more dignified. That's level 6. What's level 5? Level 5 is he knows who he's getting it from, but I don't know who I'm giving it to. What's level 4? Level 4 is I give it to him, he knows who's giving it, I know who's getting it, but I give it on my own before he asks. Then there's level 3. I give it to him after he asks. I give him. He knows, I know. He asks and I give it. What's level 2? I give him with a smile, with a geschmack, with a varmkeit, but I give him a little less than he needs. He's still struggling. And then the lowest level is, I give him, but I give him with a sour face. You know what I mean? I show him the door. He feels the baruch shepatrani. That's the lowest level. So see, there's something interesting what the Rambam is telling you. The number 8 is not just the first level. It's of a different level, legamri. Ein למאי ממנו. It doesn't go into the same genre. זה לא נכנס לאותה מסגרת, איך שאומרים אצלכם, לאותה מסגרת של 7 המעלות. למה? אני אגיד את זה בעברית ואחר כך באנגלית. כי 7 המעלות התחתונות הן כולן חלק מגדר נתינת צדקה. אין לך, ואני מציל אותך, כי אני נותן לך. אם זה מתן בסתר, אם לא. המדרגה הראשונה זה לא אני נותן לך. אני נותן, אני מחזק אותך, שאתה תוכל להעניק לעצמך. וזה כבר מדרגה אחרת. You see, the lowest 7 levels, it's basically, I'm saving you. I'm saving you. I'm helping you. I'm giving you charity. Either you know who gave it to you, you don't know. I know you. I don't know. I give it to you with a smile. I don't give it to you with a smile. Gewaldig, but it's of a different genre. The first level, Ein למאי ממנו, is I'm not saving you. I'm helping you save yourself. That's a whole different category. Gewaldige difference. I'll tell you a story I heard from the Bala Maisa. There's a Jew, his name is Rabbi Yosef Talushkin, Joe Talushkin, Joseph Talushkin. He's a famous author in the United States. He wrote many, many books. He wrote a book on Jewish humor and a book on Jewish literacy. We were once flying together to South Carolina on a conference by the Federation on Jewish continuity. So we flew together on a little airplane. So we were sitting near each other. So Joe Talushkin, Rabbi Yosef Talushkin, told me a story that happened with his father. It was a very, very moving story. Very moving story. Story is His father's name was Reb Shlomo Talushkin. He had a Zayda. Some of you probably knew who Zayda was. He had a Zayda Reb Nissen Talushkin. Mr. Talushkin was a Rav in Borough Park. He wrote a sefer called Taras Mayim. He was a big expert on mikvayas. Reb Nissen Talushkin, Zechron Levrach. But he had a father, Reb Shlomo. Reb Shlomo was an Erlich Yid, a simple Erlich Yid, and he worked as an accountant. And he told me my father was one of these people who worked his entire life. You know, he never took anything from anybody. He woke up early in the morning, he davened, he put in a full day of work. He supported his family with simplicity, but with dignity as an accountant. One of his clients was the secretariat of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The secretary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was the accountant, the bookkeeping, the bills, whatever he did. He tells me in the mid-1980s, his father suffered a stroke. It was a serious stroke. And he was in the hospital. He lived in Brooklyn, in New York. He was in the hospital, a stroke victim. And it was devastating. You know, obviously he was just in the hospital. And he tells me, he gets a call. He gets a call from who? From one of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's secretaries, a Jew named Rabbi Yudel Krinsky. So sein gesund. Rabbi Krinsky tells him that the Lubavitcher Rebbe would look over the invoices at the end of the month. And he's looking over some of the invoices, and he tells Rabbi Krinsky, there's a discrepancy here. Yesh I hatamapa. There's a discrepancy between something is off. So Rabbi Krinsky says, he'll look into it. The Rebbe says, Bet Shlomo Talushkin, why don't you ask Shlomo Talushkin to check it out, and maybe he can reconcile it for us. So Rabbi Krinsky calls Joe Talushkin and he says, I want to come over to the hospital to show it to your father. So Joe tells me, he says, Rabbi Jacobson, I told Rabbi Krinsky, didn't you tell the Rebbe that he's a stroke victim? He had a stroke? I don't understand. Are you going to go bother him in the hospital with some bill that you have? So Rabbi Yudel tells him, the Rebbe knows that he had a stroke. The Rebbe was notified right when he had the stroke. The Rebbe knows. So he said, so why didn't you tell the Rebbe? He says, listen, the Rebbe knows he had a stroke. The Rebbe asked me to go ask him. I'm not going to go ask the Rebbe, he had a stroke, you forgot? A chassid doesn't do that. So Joe tells me, he says, I felt very that he worked by the Rebbe's office for so many decades, and how could you forget he had a stroke? Rabbi Yudel said, listen, the Rebbe asked me to do this, let me do it. Say to come to the hospital. He said he comes to the hospital with the bills, and he gives it to the Shlomo Talushkin. The Shlomo Talushkin starts looking at it. And it wasn't a complicated thing, it was a very simple thing. And it was hard for him to speak. But his eyes light up and he says, I'll show you the mistake. I'll show you the mistake. And he caught the mistake and he reconciled the discrepancy and everything was wonderful. And Joe Talushkin tells me on the airplane, he says, you will not understand how much life that gave my father. Because he was feeling so useless. He was feeling like for the first time in his life, he's just makabel, he's just passive. The first time in his life, he felt so unneeded, so useless. He worked every single day like he felt like he has to contribute to society. And for the first time, he was just debilitated, paralyzed. He said, I was upset at the Rebbe, and then I suddenly realized that the Rebbe could have figured out the discrepancy in a few moments, maybe a few seconds. Et gehat a schnelle Kop to Lubavitcher Rebbe. He didn't want my father to help him with the bill. He wanted my father to know that he's needed. And he says, you should know that helped him so much come back to life. And he said he got back, he got out of it, and he continued to function. He continued to live for quite a few years. And when he told me this story, I understood something. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, in Yoyer Deya Siman Reish Mem Ches. And it's in Rambam and Hilchas Matnas Ani and Perek Zayin that every Jew is obligated to give tzedakah. Afilu ani amisparnis min tzedakah chayiv litin tzedakah mimashen noistem loy. Even a poor person who gets all of his money from tzedakah, he has to take part of the money that they give him for tzedakah. So you have to make sure to give him money that he should be able to give tzedakah. And I thought to myself, why? Why? I don't understand. instead of having the poor man give tzedakah, take that money and give it directly to another poor man. No. When I give you tzedakah, I can only give you bread, and I can only give you cereal, and I can only give you water and milk and vegetables and potato. No. I also have to give you extra monies that you should give tzedakah. Why? The answer is because if a person doesn't give, the person feels less than human. We don't only give because I have, so let me give, I have extra. Giving is innate to the human spirit, it's innate to the human condition. A mensch darf sein mashpia, nicht nur makabel. A person innately needs to be a giver, not only a taker. So if you want to help a poor person, I can't just give you charity. I also have to give you the dignity that you should feel that you're giving something, you're not just taking. And therefore I have to give you extra money to be able to give tzedakah. Shlomo Telushkin was suffering that day. Not just physically, obviously, emotionally. He had to feel that he can give. That's what the Rambam is telling us. When Achim takes a younger man, or an elder man, and helps this person not just take, but give. The person wants to give. The person wants to give to themselves. The person wants to give to others. So the Rambam says, Ein lemai lahimena. That person, to be able to help them, establish themselves on their feet, give them that independence, give them that dignity. Talk the Rambam, Ein lo come to the world of tzedakah, Ein lemala mimena. And it's an interesting thing. With this inequality that the free market creates, Parshas Bahar, first of all, introduces a lot of halachas, from Shemitah to Yovel, to all the halachas of freeing the earth on Yovel, and Shechrur Avodim, all the halachas of Bahar, and loans, interest-free loans, and tzedakah, etc., etc. That's from a legalistic level. But there's two other points made in Parshas Bahar that are foundational and have come to define the sociological Weltanschauung of the Jewish people. Ha-hashkafa ha-sozialit shel Am HaYehudi me'oz omdo al Har Sinai. The perspective, the social hashkafa of Klal Yisrael. Number one, in the halachas of Parshas Bahar, you have the word brother. I think 10 times, maybe more, but at least 10 times. It says the word achicha. Ki yamuch achicha. Ki yamuch achicha imach v'gal mimkar achicha. It keeps on saying your brother 10 times. Why? Why? Because the Torah is teaching us psychologically how we have to look at each other. We're brothers. There's an old joke about a chimpanzee who was sitting in the zoo and he was reading two books, the Bible and Charles Darwin's The Origin of the Species. So the zookeeper, the one who took care of the zoo, the man took care of the zoo, asked the chimpanzee, why are you reading these two books? He said, I'm trying to figure out, am I my brother's keeper or am I my keeper's brother? The idea of a brother, Cain says, Hashem achi anaychi. Am I my brother's keeper? I'm responsible for my brother. That's Cain. What does Yosef say? Es achi anaychi mevakesh. I'm searching for my brother. Yosef HaTzadik says, a brother searches for a brother. Es achai, I want to be here for my brother. Achim. Achim doesn't say, Hashem achi anaychi. Well, I care for my brother. Take care of your own business. I have my own problems. Achim is built on the words of Yosef. Es achai anaychi mevakesh. Roi Yisrael ha'azina, noye katzoin Yosef. Beautiful word from Reb Shnei Kotler, Hagorin Reb Shnei Kotler, Rosh Hashiva of Lakewood. He once said, a Yid told this to me in Montreal. He heard it from Reb Shnei one Friday night. He came to Montreal, there was an Oynik Shabbos, Abota, and he said this word. It says in Parshas Re'eh, lois is goidedu. When somebody Chalila dies, you shouldn't scrape off the skin from your body, which was one of the signs of grief. Lois is goidedu. So the Gemara says in Yevamos, Daf Yud Gimel, lois is goidedu is lois sasu agudus agudus. Don't splinter Klal Yisrael into different groups. Don't create machloikasin in cities. Lois sasu agudus agudus. Ask the Maharal of Prague in Gurarye. Usually when the Chazal explain a pasuk, it's somehow connected to the theme of the pasuk. Here, the Pirush of Torah Shebiksav and the Pirush of Torah Shebal Peh seem completely disconnected from each other. In Chumash, Loisus Gayadu means don't scrape off the skin. And in the Gemara in Yevamos, don't split the Jewish people into separate, disconnected fragments. What ma kesher? What's the connection? Loises goydedu means don't scrape off skin. So Chazal sometimes give another pirush, but it has to be connected. This is the Maral's question in Gurari on the Chumash in Parshas Re'eh, I think. So the Bnei Kotler Zatzal, he said something beautiful. He said it's really the same thing. It's the same pirush. It's just the pnimius of it. Because it says in Yerushalmi, Maseches Nedarim, that all the Jewish people are keguf echad, are like one body. Keguf echad. So when you separate yourself from another Jew, what are you doing? You're not just separating yourself from another person. It's like chas v'shalom, you're amputating a part of your body because all the Jewish people are one guf, are like one body. So loises goydedu means don't scrape off the epidermis, don't scrape off the skin of your body. Zog the Gemara, loisasu agudus. If there's a Jew I disconnect from, enli chelek bich imcha, I don't want to be connected to you. I can't deal with you. I loathe you. I hate you. I despise you. I don't want to be connected. Get out of my life. What am I doing? I'm scraping off part of my own body. I'm detaching myself, part of my own body. The Arizal said that before davening in the morning, you should say, Areini mekabel mitzvah aseh shel v'ahavta l'recha kamoicha. You should accept mitzvah v'sno. Why? So that Tzemach Tzedek writes in the Sefer Derech Mitzvah, he says something beautiful. He says, it says in Parshas Emer, that's our Parsha this week, that kol bal mum, if a behemoth is a bal mum, lo yikrev, you can't bring it, lo yali, you can't bring it up as a carbon, lo ratzon lefnei Hashem. Why? Because it's blemished. If a kohen is a bal mum, he can't serve in the Beis HaMikdash. If a behemoth is a bal mum, if he's blemished, you can't use the behemoth as a carbon. So Tzemach Tzedek says, what is davening? Tefillah keneged karbonis tiknum, keneged tmidim, a Gemara in Brachas. Tefillah is karbonis. So when I daven, I'm going up to Hashem. Carbon, it says in Kabbalah, Sefer Dabar, comes the word kiruf. So when I daven, I'm going up, I'm coming closer to Hashem. But if I'm detached from another Jew, if I say, you're not my brother, I hate my brother, I'm a balmum. I cut off limbs of myself. He says, a balmum can't become a carbon. You can't be mile yourself to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Arizal says, before davening, you say, Hareini mekabel alai mitzvahs aseh shel v'ahavta l'recha kamoicha. Now you're not a balmum. Bestishkem balmum. Now you're another mashalim. Now you can come to the Rebbeinu Shalom because Hashem includes all. And when I tell Hashem, imagine somebody comes to you and says, Moti, I love you, but I hate your children. He says, you don't love me. You don't love me. If you love me, you take care of my kids. If a Yid comes to Hashem in Shul and he says, V'ahavta Hashem elekecho, I love God. Then you see another Jew or him, never, I'm not talking to him. Hashem says, no. If you love me, if you really love me, you love my children. If you don't love me, then you don't love my children. So if I come as a balmum, I can't, Hashem says, I need everything. I need everybody. It's all or nobody. Don't tell me that one child you're not inviting to the chassan. If you're not inviting a child, don't invite me. Don't invite anybody else. We're all connected. We're all one. We never separate ourselves from each other. That's the chiddush of Parshas Bahar. Ki yamucha achicha. It's your brother. Same genes, same parents. Bnei ish echad nachnu. Av echad lukulano. It's one. Loises goydedu. It's a gewaldike sfas emes. I have to thank Rabbi Eichler for pointing out this sfas emes to me. This week's Parsha. Parshas Bahar, Tov Reish Mem Aleph, 1881. Sfas emes asks the question, what does it mean? Ki yamucha chicha v'achzakta boy, el mato yodoi imoch. What's the imoch? The Mefarshim say, umato yodoi imoch, with you. V'achzakta boy. It could say, v'chiyamucha chicha. Your brother became poor. Umata yodoi, his hand is losing the grip on his life, meaning he's not being successful. V'achzakta boy, hold on to him. V'chayimach. What's umata yodoi imoch? Zok dehelikas sfas emes. Sfas emes says something very powerful. He says the fact that mata yodoi, that his hand is weak, he doesn't have the ability to support himself, it's because imach, his money, the money that he needs, or the wisdom that he needs is with you. It's imach, it's with you. Sheyesh bekoyach ish lahachzik biyad chaveir shemata yodoi v'chai imach. it means that you have the power to hold on to him. V'chai imach, again imach, because his chiyus is with you. And he explains as follows. We say in benching every day, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hazon es ha'olam kuloi betuvoi b'chein b'chesed u'v'rachem. Gewaldige kasha. Why are we talking about the whole world? I ain't. Talk about me. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hazon oisi betuvoi b'chein b'chesed u'v'rachem. Hazon es ha'olam kuloi. It's a beautiful thing. Who's talking about the world? Not everybody ate now. Some people in Australia are sleeping. Why are we talking? Who talk about me. Talk about us, me, my family. There's another question. People ask this to me. When people come, sometimes they start benching. They say, you know what's happening in Africa? You know how many people are suffering from malnutrition in Africa? Baruch Hashem, we have no shortage of food, and we shouldn't take it for granted. Avinu Malkeinu Kali Deve V'Cherev V'Rov. For many generations, people woke up in the morning and they didn't know if they're going to die from hunger, or from a famine, from a plague, from a virus, or from violence. Today we live in a time that in much of the civilized world, more people are dying from Coca-Cola than they're dying from hunger. You know that in the last few years, more people are dying from obesity than from starvation. It's a gewaldige Zach, but it's not in the whole world. Some people are starving. So this Vasema says a beautiful yisoid. Gewaldige word. It's such a nice word. He says, let me tell you how Hashem built the world. Hashem built the world in a way that nobody has everything. It says, Ezo chachem haloimid mikol adam. Haloimid mikol adam, really? Yede Meshugana has what to teach me. Yede Katla Kanya has what to teach me. Yede Baibir Avdecha Haloimid Mikol Adam. Why? There's no such a thing that there's something in the world that's not a mashpia. Everyone has something to teach me. Nobody has it all. Everybody needs somebody else. I need you for money. I need you for advice. I need you for wisdom. I need you for your emes. I need you for your midas. I need you for your laughter. I need you for your humor. I need you for your authenticity. Even every worm contributes to the ecosystem, to the food chain, to the food web. Every worm, every fossil, every bone. Why? So the Sfasema says, because this way we figure out the truth that everybody has a piece of godliness. Nobody owns everything. If somebody would think everything is by me, you would forget the truth that we're all part of a greater oneness. And that oneness is reflected in each creature, and therefore each one of us needs the other. You need me and I need you. There's no person I don't need. There's no person I can't learn from. Either I need you for money, or I need you for wisdom, or I need you for authenticity, or I need you for your humor, or I need you for your help, I need you for your assistance. Every person has something unique and indispensable to contribute to the cosmic symphony. It's like ballads, it's like notes in a ballad. Every note is indispensable. It's like musicians or musical instruments in a symphony. Every instrument has its unique flavor that it adds, like a jigsaw puzzle, like limbs in a body. Every limb, every organ, every cell from the 80 trillion cells contributes its uniqueness. There's no such a thing, I'm self-contained. Because if I would feel I'm self-contained, I would lose touch with reality. Einoid Milvade, we're all part of oneness. And therefore, he says, Hazanas ha'olam kule betuvai. Hashem created the resources that we should be able to nurture the whole world. But those resources are sometimes given to a certain person or to a group of people, and we have to share. We have to realize we're all in it together. Sometimes governments or individuals are in a corrupt state and they don't do their job. So Hazanas ha'olam kuloi, the way Hashem nurtures us, is not He gives everything to everybody. Sometimes He gives part of your wisdom to me, and I have the responsibility to give it to you. And then He gives you something from me, and then you have the responsibility to give it to me. And that's how the world works. He says, "Hamekablim tzrichim lisached velosei zela ze ba'achtus echad va'oz ein machser davar." So the Rebbeinu Shalom gives the whole Bria everything it needs every day, beguf u benefesh. And that's why we say, Hazonas ha'olam kuloi. But there's a condition. The condition is we have to realize that we're all one. He wasn't zon me, he was zonas ha'olam kuloi. Sometimes your food is by me. Sometimes my food is by you. The Medrash says here in Medrash Rabbah that this refers both. V'chiyamu chachicha is not just money, it's also wisdom. It's also wisdom. A whole medrash based on it. There's a Gemara in Tmura Daf Tazayin about Rosh v'Ish Tachachim Nifgeshu Meir Ein Shneim Hashem. When the poor person meets the wealthy person and he helps the poor person, Meir Ein Shneim Hashem. It's in money and it's in wisdom. Like the Gemara says in Tmura and the Medrash Rabbah says here by Arichis. They both need it. I need to give you not only for you, for me also. Meir Einei Shneim Hashem. Because the reason I have what I have, it's Zonas Ha'olam Kuloi. The world is one unit. So he says, Saktas Vasemes. V'chiyamu chachicho mata yodoi imach. If you see your brother is struggling with parnasa, you should know imach. It's because this is with you. The help is within you. It's in me. Bevadai nimtza ezer etzlecha. Sometimes I say I don't have the power. He says, Meir Einei Shneim Havaya. You'll come together and you will see the extraordinary blessing that exists. But for this, I have to realize, Ezel Chacham Aloymid Mikaladam. Why? Sheyesh Etzel Kol Echad Davar Miyuchad Yosim Ilachedim Mitam Hanal. This is this Fasemes, Parshas Bahar. We have 6 minutes for Ma'ariv. So in 6 minutes, I'm going to share with you another 2 beautiful insights. There's an incredible halacha in Talmud Yerushalmi, in Meseches Arla. And here you see how the world of science and the world of halacha, the world of botany and Torah, it's all one. It's all one. The Gemara says in Brachas Daf Ches, Amar Ula. It doesn't only mean that Hashem only exists in Dal Ramish Allah. It means the ganze Welt is Dal Ramish Allah. The whole world is a reflection of Dal Ramish Allah. It's a beautiful Torah in Pirkei Avos. Amar Rabbi Yaakov. You're walking, you're taking a hike, you're learning, and you interrupt your learning. This week's Perek by us. The Torah considers you like you're endangering your life because you said, the tree is beautiful, the landscape is beautiful. And I ask you, Ashayla Rabbeisa, what's the problem? He was walking, he was learning, and then he saw a beautiful tree, a beautiful landscape, a beautiful heaven, a beautiful sea. And he started to be Meshabeach the Rebbeinu Olamim. Marabu Masech Hashem. David HaMelech did it in Tehillim. There's brachas and Masechta brachas that you make on natural phenomena. You go to a zoo, you see Yamagodel, there's Meshana Abriyas, there's Isa Bereshus, Koichoi Gvurasim Alayolam, certain mountain. What's the Meschayev Ben Avshay? When you say Mana Ilanzeh, you're praising Hashem. Parts of davening we do it. The Chazal did it. David HaMelech did it. Marash. What's the big deal? One of the beautiful interpretations is he's walking and he's learning. He interrupts his learning. He says how beautiful this tree is. He thinks that there's 2 worlds. There's a world of Torah and there's the world of nature. And in order to celebrate nature, you have to interrupt your learning. The emes is Einoid Mulvadi. It's all one. You don't have to stop your learning to say how beautiful this tree. This tree is a continuum of learning. The whole world is a reflection of Torah. There's no separateness. There's no 2 separate things. There's the world of Torah, and then there's the world of Parnasa. This is what endangers our souls. It's not 2 separate worlds. It's one world, Einoid Milvadi. And when we help a person infuse their daily life with the dignity of having the ability to be able to learn Torah b'menuchas hanefesh, to educate their kids with Torah b'menuchas hanefesh, it's one world. So here you have an example in Yerushalmi for this type of unity. A fascinating halacha about Arla. What's the halacha? The halacha is as follows. I have a vine, I have a vine. Everybody knows the first 3 years of a tree, you can't eat the fruits. You can't have enough from the fruits. It's an Isser Arla. Now I take a srig, I take a branch of the vine, and I bend it, and I put it in the earth, because I want to make what's called a new vine. And I want to make a new vine. I take a branch, a zmara srig from the vine, and I put it into the earth a little further, and I want it to grow from the earth. Okay? Now it starts growing with new grapes. Do I have to do Arla on the new vine or not? So the shaila is it independent or is it not independent? If it's still connected to the source and it gets its chiyus, its vitality from the source, then you don't have to do Arla because it's just part of the first tree. But if it's considered a new vine and it's getting most of its nurture from its own roots, it develops itself, it's called its own plant, it's living from its own power, it develops itself, then you have to count 3 years of Arla. How do you know how it works? So Reb Bibi says in the name of Reb Chanina, listen to this. He says as follows. If the branches of the new vine are turned away from the first tree, then you know it's getting its nurture from the first tree. There's no Arla. But if the branches of the new tree are facing the old tree, the mother, the baba, the mother, then you know that it's independent. Why? So Rabbi Yehuda Bar Chanan said, Simona, here's the simon, the ochel min chavrei boyis listakalbe. If I eat from you, I'm embarrassed to look at you. So the Rebbeinu Shalom made, listen to this. When the new tree is living off the old tree, it's embarrassed. So the leaves turn away. I can't look at you because I'm ashamed. But when I'm already living off myself, now I'm not ashamed. Now I could honor you, I could look at you, I could say thank you. You know when you did somebody a favor, the businessmen listening know what I'm talking about. You know when you did somebody a favor and they'll never look at you again? Because they can't deal with the fact that you helped them. What do they say? When you do somebody a favor, give them little rocks. So when they start throwing rocks on you, it shouldn't be big rocks. It's hard for me to look at you. From this came the term nama de chisufa, bread of shame. Bread of shame means when I'm living off your bread, I feel embarrassed. I don't have dignity. Why don't I have dignity? Because I know it's coming from you. The Rebbeinu Shalom made a nature. Where does the Gemara say about Metziah? Adam roitze bekav shaloi mitisha kav mishal chaveire. 1 kav of tvu of mine, I want more than 9 of yours. There's a beautiful taich, a chsiddish taich. Adam roitze bekav shaloi mitisha kav mishal chaveire. Rashi says in Masechus Shabbos Lamed Aleph that Hashem is considered our friend. Re'acha v'rei avicha al tazah. Adam roitze bekav shaloi mitisha kav mishal chaveire. Hashem could give me everything for free. But Adam roitze bekav shaloi, it's more precious that I generated on my own. That's why Hashem made that a person should work. Already in Gan Eden, Hashem puts in Adam to Gan Eden, v'yanecheyu beGan Eden la'avda u'l'shamra, before the Eitz Hadas. Adam la'amal yulad. Whether it's amal melacha, amal sicha, amal Torah, three levels of Maseches Sanhedrin. Amal melacha, amal sicha. But Adam la'amal yulad. Why? Because without it, it's nama de chisufa. The tree doesn't look at its source. I look away from it. One of the greatest special gifts we can give a person. Ani amarti elikim atam, to be doima leboire, to be able to feel that Adam la'amal, that I have the ability be'ezer Hashem, to be able to create a future for myself, to be able to create a future for my family, to be able to be a contributor to my family, to my community, to be able to be not only a makabel, also a mashpia. That power to give a person, to take away the chisufa, the shame, as the Yerushalmi says in Maseches Arla, is extremely, extremely profound. And I'm going to conclude with a word from the Bel Zeruv. The Heilige Bel Zeruv once said, it says in Parshas Re'eh, I think this comes from the Sar Shalom of Bells. The Eichler family will probably be able to correct me if I attributed it to the wrong one, but I think it's the Heilige Sar Shalom of Bells. Schissa Yogan Alayni. It says in Parshas Re'eh, Ki b'cha evyon me'achad achecha be'echad sharecha ba'atzcha shabelkecha noisen loch, lo yisa'ametz es levovcha v'lo yisik poitz es yodcha me'achicha evyon, ki pasoyach tiftach es yodcha loy. If you have a poor person in one of the cities, don't close your heart. Lo ta'ametz. Don't plug your heart. And don't shut your hand. Lo yisik es yodcha. Don't shut your hand. Pasoyach tiftach. Open your hand. Give him tzedakah. Deimach seira. Give him what he needs. So the Bel Zeruv, the Sar Shalom of Belz asked, you see how redundant it says? First it says, don't close your heart. Okay, I get it. Open your heart, open your hand. He says, don't close your heart, don't close your hand, open your hand. He could have just said, don't close your heart, open your hand. I understand why he doesn't say open your heart, because it's not enough to have an open heart. You have to have an open hand also. Why does it say, so Shalom said as follows. Sometimes there's a person who has a closed heart, so you open your heart, but you still have a closed hand, because when your hand is closed, look at me, all the fingers end in the same place, you see? When you open, every finger has a different measurement. So he says, sometimes people have an open heart and they give tzedakah, but they give to everybody equally. I don't care here, $18, $180, $180, $180, $180, $180. I give everybody equally. He says, no, your hand is closed. Your heart is open, but your hand is You have to tune into what the person needs. This person needs this, this person needs this. That's the uniqueness of Achim. Ashrei maskil el dol. You have to understand what the person needs. This person needs this measurement. This person needs an eitzah. This person needs seed money. This person needs a partner. This person needs an investment. This person needs a job. This person needs training. This person needs to learn something about high tech, about computers. Tune into the individual state of the person to be able to build him or her up, so that we could be able to fulfill this great thing that the Rambam says, this great mitzvah, ein למאי ממנה, והחזקת בך, וחי עמך, מיודוי המלאה, הפסוחה, הקדושה והרחבה, והריקויסי לכם ברכה, עד בלי די, עד שיבלו ספסייכם, מלא יאמר די, amen v'amen. Thank you very much.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.